Hello, and welcome to All Walks of Life. Let's Inspire. I am your host, Peter Sobey. I'm so excited to be here on a somewhat sunny Tuesday here in Los Angeles. So, All Walks of Life is a show where I'm going to tap into people from all walks of life, especially all walks of my life. A lot of the people are people that I know and that have inspired me in so many ways. And some are people that I'm just getting to know or I've never met that I think are very inspiring. And I've talked them into being on the show. Thank you for being in the audience down there already. Some of my friends. I see Seb, Transparent, Deanna, Tracy. I'm probably getting your names wrong because you have funny usernames. Today's guest is not only a dear friend of mine, but she's one of the most renowned vegan chefs out there, Chef AJ. Between YouTube and her socials, she has over 250,000 followers. Can you believe it? We're going to get to know Chef AJ on a more personal level, find out more about her self-described journey as from fat vegan to skinny bitch. Wow. For those of you that know me, you kind of know my story. For those of you that don't, when I was 19 years old, I dove into a lake that was too shallow and I broke my spinal cord and became a quadriplegic. And now, 34 years later, here I am, not only surviving, but thriving. Those are my mantras in life, that you can't just survive, you need to thrive, no matter what your situation. Other things that have gotten me to this point in my life is I told myself early on, never look back in anger, never look back being depressed, never look back and keep saying, what if I didn't do that? That obstacle wasn't in my life. And I promised myself I would always look forward, always look forward. I want to know where I'm going to be a month from now, a year from now, 5 years from now. Be curious about your life. Want to know where you're going to be in a year and thrive to get to that place. So that's what's kept me going. So as you can see, there is lots of inspiration to be had.
Wow, that's a lot of inspiration.
Well, yes, it is. And you're probably wondering who that voice was. Well, it was none other than the co host of All Walks of Life. It's my AI intelligent robot brought to us by the fine folks over at Microhard Software. It's MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033. Say hello, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033.
Well, hello, Peter. Hello, Fireside audience. Hello, podcast listeners. And hello, world.
Wow. That sounded a little bit foreboding, MHS Ultraseismic Megatroid 3033. But okay. So now I would like to get to the guest. The guest on my show, as I said, Chef AJ. She's been a devoted plant exclusive she's been on a devoted plant exclusive diet for nearly 45 years. She's a chef, she's a TV host, a culinary instructor, a professional speaker, and author of 3 best-selling books. She has her own YouTube channel, which is thriving and incredible, where she basically conducts an interview once a day, almost every day. I would like to invite Chef AJ onto the show and onto video. Welcome
Hi.
to All Walks of Life, Chef AJ.
Well,
Do you?
see.
There you are.
Hello. Hi, Peter. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I think you're the most inspiring person I ever met, so it's quite an honor to be on your list of inspiring people.
Wow. Well, that's saying a lot. And you know who else thinks you're inspiring, Chef AJ, and wants to say hello to you?
Oh,
Well, hello, Chef AJ. Since I am an AI intelligent robot, I must know, what does AJ stand for?
good question. Got to read
Good
my book
question,
if that's
MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033. So, what does it stand for, Chef
exactly the
AJ?
first line of one of my books. My legal name is Abby J, but I like to use AJ because when I became a chef and worked at restaurants, it just was easier to apply for jobs with the name Chef AJ because they seem to prefer men. And if you just use AJ when I get to the interview, they didn't know I was female. And AJ's cute. It's short. Got a little necklace that says it. So Abby J is my real name, but it sounds southern, doesn't it? Abby J, Abby
It
J.
does.
Yeah, so it's just AJ.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yes, indeed. Very interesting.
Well, how about that? MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033 finds your initials AJ very interesting. And
Yes.
what's that? Oh, he MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033, my AI robot intelligent co host of the show, has one more thing he'd like to say to you.
Hey, Chef AJ. I love carrots. I love cabbage. I love kale. I love Beats. I love Beats headphones. I love bok choy. I love avocado. I love all that is vegan.
Nice.
Wow. So, MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033, why in the wide world of audio do you need Beats headphones? You've got the most amazing built in sound system. Plus, how can you love all that vegan food you can't even eat? You're just the AI robotic co host of all walks of life.
I do all, and I see all.
Yikes, dang, you keep saying that. That sounds very foreboding. Should we be afraid, MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033?
No, Peter, you shouldn't be afraid at all.
Well, now I am a little bit afraid, but let's get to Chef AJ. That's what we're here for. We're here for all walks of life. You're from a walk of my life, Chef AJ. So, first of all, I thought since we know each other intimately, that why don't you tell the audience how indeed we do know each other?
Yeah. So, what's that saying? 6 degrees of separation. So, my husband Charles took a writing class with a guy named Todd, and they became really, really good friends. And you were Todd's roommate.
Yes. And so Charles and Todd became writing partners. And then I got to know both of you through my roommate, Todd, and may he rest in peace. Unfortunately, he passed away about 5 years ago, but he was a good man, full of much delight, and always had a smile on his face.
And
But
we
we
lived like
remain friends.
we
What's
we
that?
lived like a block. We lived like a block from each other when I lived in Los Angeles. I would walk by your window almost every day. You didn't always see me, but I'd walk by almost every single day.
Right. And sometimes when I would hear you call out to me, sometimes it would scare the bejesus out of me. And when you're like focused on work at your desk and all of a sudden like you hear someone outside your window, it's like, yikes, sleep out of my seat. But it was also comforting at the same time.
Oh, that's funny.
So I brought up that you do in the podcast almost every day, and I do want to circle back around to that. But I
Not
bring it up
almost
right
every day.
now. I bring it up right now because you were kind enough to have me on your show
Yeah.
almost a year ago this time at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And one of the big reasons that you had me on my show, besides being such a suave, debonair, charming man, is that you started a campaign on Indiegogo to help raise even more money for me to get a brand new wheelchair equipped van. My friends had started a GoFundMe, but it fell a little bit short. So you did an Indiegogo, you had me on your show, you raised a lot more money towards the minivan. Also, through you and your show, a couple of angel investors emerged who pledged to make up whatever the difference was between what was raised and how much the van would cost. And furthermore, they pledged to pick up the tab for the driving adaptations, which could almost cost as much as the van itself. So thank you for doing that, Chef AJ.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was so funny because I really don't love social media, even though I have to be on it for my job. And I think I don't really use Facebook as a personal page. I have a personal page because in order to be in groups, you have to have them. But I have like maybe 50 friends. I don't really do the personal page, but you happen to be one of my friends. And I woke up in the middle of the night a little over a year ago, and I don't know why. I just started thinking about you. And it was like divine intervention. And it's like, why am I thinking about Pete Sobey? And so I went to your Facebook page because I really don't go to people's Facebook pages, but I did. And then I saw something to the effect of this campaign and that it was unsuccessful. So I woke Charles up in the middle of the night and I said, we have to get Pete a van. Even if we have to buy it ourselves, we have to get him a van. And it just shows how great the vegan community is because, all the people that donated pretty much are my audience and they're vegans and the angel investors are vegans. So your van is actually fueled by vegans.
Yes. And I would just like to clarify the GoFundMe wasn't unsuccessful. It
I
raised,
mean,
it raised $50,000, but it fell far short of
I
the
didn't mean it was
$83,000
unsuccessful. I meant
goal.
it wasn't enough to get a van is what I meant.
Right. I just
Yeah.
I just wanted no ill
Yeah.
will toward the people that worked so hard
Oh
on the
no, no,
GoFundMe.
no, of course not. And that's why
So
we invited them to what's really fun, and by the way, I just want to make one small correction. I don't go live almost every day. I've gone live every day since March 20th, 2020, right before the pandemic began. And as of today, let's see, something, but I've done 1,194 shows.
oh my
Thank you. Trying
goodness.
to like not break my streak. So, what was really fun
Wow,
though is
that's a
we didn't
lot
give this as
of
a
inspiration.
thank you. We gave perks to the people, and then one of the reasons we did Indiegogo instead of GoFundMe is we thought that if there were perks, more people would donate. So we gave classes and books and things like that. It just so that give people more of an incentive to donate, other than just from the goodness of their heart. But one of the things we did, which we didn't even advertise, is we had a show afterwards with famous comedians, 3 famous comedians, and that was a surprise to everybody that donated, and they just loved it.
Absolutely. And since we are going to still circle back to you doing a podcast interview every day for over 1,000 days, my mind is blown. But just to kind of continue, and in the spirit of wrapping up this story, hi, Miriam, in the audience. She's actually tied into this story in a way because these angel investors, a husband and wife, emerged and they, pledged to make up the difference. They pledged to pay for the adaptations. And they sent me an email saying as such. But, you never know. Like, some people talk and don't come through. So when I wrote them an email back right away, it was like on a Friday. And Miriam, I might be getting the days wrong in this story, but hey, it's a story. And if the days are wrong, the story is still true. I wrote them an email back because in their introductory email, they said that they've helped people before, getting vans, getting equipment, restoring their homes. And my dear friend Miriam Paré, who lives in Chicago, was in the middle of restoring her home and was about 50 grand short of her goal. And so something told me that I should bring that up to them in my first email. I'm like, oh my God, am I shooting myself in the foot? Like they might come back to me like, we want to help you. And you're like talking about other people. So in my email, I told them like, hey, listen, let's say the adaptations come up to 60 grand. How would you feel about splitting that 60 grand between me and Miriam and helping her out with her home? And I sent it off just praying that I wasn't shooting myself in the foot. But I focused really hard to the universe that I'm doing this in a sharing spirit. They wrote back to me right away saying, and I sent a link to Miriam's website. They wrote me back right away saying, like, put us in touch with her. We want to help both of you. And so and they were touched that I wanted to split my money with her. So then, in the spirit of like knowing people are the real deal, they reached out to Miriam, and I think they scheduled a FaceTime call for like that Monday, just a couple days later. And Miriam called me afterwards and said, we had a great conversation. They said they're going to make up the 50 grand between where I'm at now and my goal. And we were elated, but still, it's one of those things like, let's, temper our enthusiasm until we know these people are the real deal. The next day, one day later, I get another call from Miriam. Peter, $50,000 was wired into the account today. And I was like, at that point in time, like, I got to figure out my van right now. These people are real. So, Chef AJ.
Yeah, but can I just say one thing? I wish I could interview them, but then they wouldn't be anonymous. The thing is a lot of people gave a lot of money too. You had your artwork for sale, and people gave an extraordinary amount. Just there were a few other people that I can think of that were very big donors that were really interested in seeing you be independent.
Yes, and I should also mention in that spirit that Neil Lane, the jeweler, and his foundation donated a very sizable chunk of money as well. So I should also thank him in the spirit of that. But Chef AJ, I haven't posted anything on social media yet because I want to put together a really wonderful presentation. However, I thought that today, here on Fireside, on All Walks of Life, Let's Inspire, with Chef AJ as my guest, would be the perfect opportunity to announce to the world that last Thursday night, a brand new 2022 Chrysler Voyager minivan was delivered to me.
What color?
And the color is a deep pearl red. It's beautiful. If this were a platform where I could share photos, obviously I would, but be looking for that on social media. So here's the deal. I've got the minivan in my parking spot. It's not adapted for me to drive yet, so I just need to get friends to drive or hire drivers to drive. But I'll have my third driving evaluation on October 25th. So we're getting closer to figuring out the equipment because equipment's changed since I last did it like 30 years ago or 25 years ago. And it's a minivan, not a full-size van. But I got the van. Thank you, Chef AJ, from the bottom of my heart.
I'd love to see a photo, and when you do shoot a video, I'd love to put it on my social media as well and send it out.
Absolutely.
And what we can do is send it out to everybody that contributed.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm going to send it to everyone from GoFundMe. I want to make sure all the Indiegogo people get it. So big news. A dream has come to fruition. How about that?
I think that, every time I've gotten a car, and I try to keep my cars as long as possible because I love keeping cars rather than getting new ones. I always name them. Will you name your van anything?
Yeah, I usually do name my cars as well. And I haven't picked a name yet, but for some reason, when you ask me that and I don't think, like Sally comes to my head. So it might have to be something
Yeah.
Sally.
Oh, I
I
was
don't know
thinking
why Sally.
Rosie, because she's
Yeah,
red.
yeah,
And
that could be.
Rosie was one of your cats.
She was, and plus, I'm Uncle Peter to Sunday Rose Ryan, the young 7.5-year-old who's about to be 8. So she might be very touched too if I called the van Rosie. So I like your idea, Chef AJ.
And Rosie was the maid on the Jetsons who was, very capable and
Oh,
electronic.
was that Rosie?
Yeah.
Oh, the Jetsons, right. I was thinking the Jeffersons. You're right, the Jetsons.
Oh, Jefferson's
The
was,
Jeffersons was Florence.
yeah, absolutely.
Florence. I shouldn't try to. I can't do a good whatever Mr. Jefferson's name was. So yes, so that's the big news. You're the guest on my show. We
I
spent a lot
can't
of
wait to
time
tell Charles.
just kind of talking about that. There's so much that I want to talk to you about. I always say here on All Walks of Life on Fireside, I really like my audience to get to know my guest on a more personal level. But I do want to kind of start with, let's circle back to the fact that you have created a podcast and interview every day for how many days?
Well, it's not, the show number is 1194, but there are days that I do more than one show. So March 20th, 2020. So it's a little over 2.5 years of not missing a day of having at least one show. So I want to get to at least 3 years, and I'm going to see how long I can go without missing.
So how and why did you set a goal? Did you just
I didn't
start doing it?
Yeah, it was not planned, honestly. I mean, because I never think of myself really as a YouTuber or a podcaster. I think of myself as a chef, culinary instructor, and author. As such, since about 2009, the way I made my living was traveling. So I would travel to conferences, medical conferences at hospitals or cruise ships or spas where I would either lecture on nutrition or teach cooking. And I would go sometimes every week to a different location, mostly in the United States, but occasionally outside of the United States. And it's pretty tiring, actually, after about 10 years doing that, to be honest, especially when you're an introvert and a homebody. But what happened with the pandemic, there were no more jobs because we didn't travel. I mean, we didn't, nobody had a pandemic before. We didn't know when it was going to end or when we would start traveling again. And so I wanted to go live. I had a private membership group at the time. And so I wanted to go live to my group just to create a sense of community and connection. And I was trying out this new technology called Restream, which I still use. I think it's fabulous, by the way, which allows you to go live to all your social media except for Instagram at the same time. So with a push of a button, you can go live to YouTube and Facebook and Twitter. I'm not very good with technology, and I pushed the wrong button because I was trying to just go to live to this private Facebook group, but I ended up going live to my regular professional Facebook page where I have about 82 or 84,000 people, as well as YouTube, which at the time I had maybe only about 70,000 people. And there were a lot of people watching live, like 500 or 600. And it was just sort of like, just to create a sense of connection or community because people were scared and confused. And I did that for a few days, and then I realized, I'm going to be bored if it's just me. And so I started contacting a few of my friends. And because I'm a vegan educator, most of my friends are vegan, and they're either doctors or chefs or dietitians or authors. And I said, hey, will you come on? I didn't even call it a show because I didn't even think of it as a show. It didn't even have a name. I said, we'll just talk to people. And then the next thing I know, I start getting all these emails like, can I be on your show? And I'm like, what show? And it grew so fast from 70,000 to, like now I'm at 170,000. And it became a show so much so that I mean, 6 months ahead, I'm always booked. I'm already booked 6 months ahead. And that's if only doing one a day. And believe me, there's such demand. People will come on twice a day. I mean, I could do more than one a day. I've done up to 5 shows a day when people really have a need, like they have a product or a book. And so I really enjoy promoting other people, especially, and you don't have to be vegan because you're not, and you were on the show. That what you have to be doing is great things in the world, because I say at the beginning of the show, every episode, hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ. And this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. So nowhere in that description does it mean the person has to be vegan. I had the wife of Jack LaLanne on, and she's not vegan. But you have to be great. You have to be doing something in the world, contributing, in other words. And So that's kind of what happened, and it kind of pulled me a little bit away from really what I'm supposed to be doing, which is writing. I have a publisher, and my books are a little late because I mean this YouTube show is so fun because honestly, Pete, I'm meeting people from all over the world that even if I had continued to travel, I probably realistically wouldn't have gotten to Australia and New Zealand and some of the places in Asia where I'm interviewing guests. So it's been really fun and really rewarding, and as long as there's an interest, I will keep doing it. We have we have about 200 core people. I call them the Zoomunity that show up live every day. When it's a famous doctor, we could get up to 1,000, but most of the people like your show, of course, watching the replay, and it's just a lot of fun. It just, like you say, it creates goodwill. And, we're not selling anything. I mean, yes, of course, there's some commercials which you can skip, but, there is a cost to doing a show like these lights and things like that. But yeah, I enjoy it. So I guess I am a YouTuber now. I'm an old YouTuber, but it's a lot of
Yeah, I
fun.
would call you a YouTuber, and
Yeah.
there's a part of me that wants to ask you, like, how in the wide world of conversation can you keep up with doing a show every day? But as we just saw, you are incredible at talking. Like, you have no problem
Yeah, no problem talking. I
explaining
probably,
things. You have no problem talking, and that's great.
yeah,
Sometimes
it's right.
people kind of feel like they run out of things to say or anything, but I have a feeling I could probably listen to you talk for 24 hours straight, and it would be really fascinating.
I would have been a great senator because I'd be great at the filibuster. And I think it's because I've always kind of had my toe in improv comedy, and I can just talk. I can't type, I can't write. And that's why I struggle so much with my books. And I always have to have a co-writer named Glenn Mercer because it's at a certain point I give up. It's like, I hate to write. I hate to read. I love Audible, by the way. I love to listen and I love to talk, but I don't like to type.
And let's just circle back to kind of the beginning. You are 45 years a vegan, and I forgot where I read it, but I did read that you are a self-described from fat vegan to skinny bitch. And I
Mhm.
should also let our audience know they're watching live right here on Fireside, or if you're watching the replay, if you look at the fortune cookie in the middle of the screen, you can go to Chef AJ's website, which is misspelled, I just noticed.
Yeah, and also
I,
it's Chev AJ. Yeah, it's an F, not a V. Yeah.
I cut and pasted from what you sent me, but I should have double
Oh,
checked. I'm sorry.
that's okay. I'm chef, not Chev, but
It's
maybe
Chef.
we can
And
fix
then
that.
there's her Instagram, The Real Chef AJ, her website, www.chefaj.com, and her YouTube channel, which is, if you type youtube.com/c/Chef AJ, or if you just search for Chef AJ, she's the one that popped right up on top. So, yes, whether you're watching now or whether you are watching the replay, look at the fortune cookie, and that's how you can reach out to Chef AJ. And those of you in the audience, if you have any questions or any comments, or even want to come up on stage and ask a question, just click on the React button in the bottom right hand corner. That will open up a wall of emojis. Then you click on the emoji on the right hand side with the thought bubble who's thinking, and that will open up the message board to chat. Or you could click on the circle menu with the equal sign in the bottom left corner and request to speak. So if you're live, that's how you can reach out, either through chat message or on stage. If you're watching the replay, connect with Chef AJ with the links in the fortune cookie. So Chef AJ, self-described from fat vegan to skinny bitch,
Yep.
45-year journey.
Yep.
What
45
was
years.
that tipping point 45 years ago?
Oh, tipping point was I loved animals. I still love animals, but I really loved them and I didn't want to be eating them. But I had to wait till I left home at the age of 17 to fully become vegan because, when you grow up in the 60s, you don't have the internet yet, and there were really no vegans or anything to base the off of that is a very not only healthy diet, maybe the healthiest, but also very safe. So Jewish mothers worry, where are you going to get your protein? I mean, I still hear that every single day. So as soon as I went to school, to college, University of Pennsylvania, I just stopped eating animals on September 1st, 1977, also wearing them as well. And yeah, the thing is I wasn't very healthy. I grew up with a morbidly obese mother, and I became obese at the age of 5. And by the age of 11, I weighed about 160 pounds, and I was not yet 5 feet tall. And, in my 20s, I got up to about 200 pounds. The thing is because I was a junk food vegan. I wasn't eating the healthy foods that I eat today, which are fruits and vegetables and whole grains and legumes, things like that, nuts and seeds. I was eating basically processed food, which was very kind of difficult to do because, now it is so easy to be vegan. They have fake meats and fake cheeses that some people that even aren't vegan can't tell the difference and say they're delicious, not necessarily health promoting. They didn't have any of those. They didn't even have, plant milk or soy milk back then. So basically things that are vegan, that have always been vegan, like Coca-Cola, which I loved Coke Slurpees. I had one every day for breakfast. Dr. Pepper, things like potato chips and French fries. These have always been vegan. So I basically ate a lot of processed food that happened to be vegan and didn't eat whole foods. And so I ended up quite obese, and also with the beginning of colon cancer, which is not good. And then at the age of 43, I turned my health around by adopting what people call a whole food plant-based or whole food plant exclusive diet. Without processed food, and my health improved, my weight lowered, I reversed my precancerous polyps, and as they say, the rest is history. It's almost 20 years now since I've been a healthy eater.
Is that a raw diet, or can you still cook?
No, you can still cook your food. For a couple years, I did dabble with the raw diet, and I did not love it for me because I'm a person that tends to be cold. But that doesn't mean I don't eat raw food. So, for example, salad is a raw food. Anytime I eat a piece of fruit, it's a raw food. But no, I love to cook my food. It was really hard with raw food when I was a raw foodist because since you can't eat things like starches like rice and beans and potatoes, I was always hungry. So basically fruits and vegetables are very healthy, but they have almost no calories and you can't get full on them. So what a lot of people that are raw do is they eat very high fat plant foods like a lot of nuts and seeds and avocado and tahini, because you got to get your calories somewhere. So now where I get the bulk of my calorie are from starches, which have been vilified for years, but actually are the healthiest foods on the planet. The complex carbohydrates, the unrefined versions, sweet potatoes, for example, winter squashes, whole grains, not processed flours and sugars, things like quinoa, teff, millet, amaranth. And so I get to eat a lot of food. I get to actually eat more. See, I love to eat. And so by understanding the way I eat, which is following the principles of calorie density, not counting calories, big difference, I can eat more and weigh less because the foods I eat are so calorically dilute, like fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, that I can eat an abundance of them and still remain slender while getting the most nutrient bang for my caloric buck, because the foods that are lowest in caloric density are the foods highest in nutrient density. But I didn't know any of this until about 20 years ago.
So in the spirit of carbohydrates, does that mean French fries?
Well, yes, except I don't cook them in oil and salt. So like when you go to McDonald's, their French fries are delicious because they're sprayed with lard and then they're cooked in oil and they've got sugar in them and salt on them. I can make French fries out of either russet potatoes or Yukon Golds or sweet potatoes, but I don't fry them. I either bake them or steam them in an Instant Pot. I chill them, then I cut them up and I put them in this amazing machine called an air fryer. It's absolutely magical. You don't need to use oil or salt and it crisps things up. So I can eat fries just like everybody else, but my fries, instead of being, I don't know, what's oil, 4,000 calories a pound. So French fries are probably about 2,500 calories a pound. My French fries are about 400 calories a pound because there's no oil or salt or sugar on them. And I can still put sauces on them. I like barbecue sauce, but Charles likes ketchup and mustard on his fries. So yeah, I do eat fries, but they're healthy fries.
Wow, I love that. And now in the spirit that we're talking about your evolution with becoming a vegan and all of that, it is time for a segment here on All Walks of Life. Let's Inspire on the Fireside app. I'd like to welcome Christine and Graciela from the audience. And what is this that I am hearing? MHS Ultra Seismic 3033. What was that?
Wheels of Wisdom.
Ah, yes, it's time for the Wheels of Wisdom segment here on All Walks of Life. So, Chef AJ, the Wheels of Wisdom segment is me pulling one of my favorite quotes from a topic we are speaking of. This is a quote from author Zoe Weil, Weil. I am grateful to realize that my desires do not entitle me to add to another's suffering. I just love that quote
I love it. Sounds like
because I
something
think
the
for a lot
Dalai
of
Lama.
vegans, like you even said, you didn't want to bring harm to animals. Like some people, I think, do it for the diet, but I would probably guess that 95% of the people do it for their love of
Yeah.
animals.
I think so. As there's an old saying, I wish no living thing to suffer pain. And, animal, whether you feel like it is right to eat animals or not right, they do suffer tremendously. Especially with factory farming and even animals that are slaughtered in the kosher, which is not a humane method, they suffer terribly and they live their life in deplorable conditions. People, if you did to your domesticated dog or cat what is done every day to chickens and turkeys and pigs, you'd go to jail. That's how horrific and how barbaric the treatment is. Pigs are smarter than dogs. Pigs are smarter than a 2-year-old child. And it's just, if people, Paul McCartney, who's vegan, by the way, or at least vegetarian, I'm sure, used to say if slaughterhouses had windows, everyone would be a vegetarian. Cruelty can't stand the spotlight. And so, yeah, I can't live my life for my gustatory pleasures if I know I'm harming someone else. The fact is you may like meat and animal products, but you don't need them to live. No one needs them to live. Not us. I mean, maybe the lion does, true obligate carnivores, but we're herbivores. And if you think about the largest animals on the planet, the elephants, giraffes, they eat plants. So, it's, yeah, but thank you. That's kind of what I want my life to be about. I actually have, you can't see it, there's an award on the wall. I was inducted in 2018 into the Vegan Hall of Fame. You probably didn't
Yes,
even
I
know
was
that.
going to ask you about that.
Yeah,
How does it
well,
feel to be inducted into the
yeah,
Vegetarian
it
Hall
was.
of Fame?
Honestly, it's like if I was an actor, it would be winning an Oscar. That would be the equivalent because Gandhi's in there. And it's like to be even mentioned in the same sentence of his life is incredible. I did not know I was getting this award. If I did, I would have put makeup on that day. I was at this thing with my friend. I'm like, I'm so tired. Come on, let's go. And I didn't want to even be there for the ceremony. I was wearing a sweatsuit, and I'm like, I'm so tired. And then they said, and this year's winner's from Los Angeles, California. And I'm like, oh no. Oh no, because I didn't have anything prepared. I mean, my husband knew, but I wish they had told me because I would have wrote it a killer speech, No, but it was really, because people always, I think when you get something from your peers, it's the most meaningful, That's why a lot of actors say they like it better when they win a SAG award than some other popular. It's to win because it was given to me by my peers, other prominent vegans, and yeah, it was pretty cool. So I'm very proud of that, and I'm just proud that all the animals I didn't eat in 45 years, that are walking around today, maybe because of me. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And so, one of the core questions here on All Walks of Life is I like to ask my guests about an obstacle that they overcame. And we are going to get to that right after this. My AI intelligent robot co host, MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033, has a question for you, Chef AJ.
Hey, Chef AJ, I've got one for you. What does this music mean to you, Chef AJ? Tell us about this experience.
Good question, MHS Ultra Seismic Megatroid 3033.
That was another great moment in my life, September 1st, 1977, where I fulfilled a lifelong dream of being a guest, an actual guest on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. I had been on before with Joey Bishop in 1974, and that was before VCR, so I don't even like have the footage to show people, but you can go to my YouTube channel and just put in Chef AJ on Johnny Carson, and I did a little comedy act there. I was on for 10 minutes, which for an unknown to do at the top of the show was virtually unheard of. And he was such a mensch. It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
Wait a second. I didn't know this about. I thought you were on Johnny Carson, like representing vegans. I did not know that you did stand up on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Right. Well, listen, by the time I was on Johnny Carson, I had only been vegan for 10 years. And so that wasn't, I was trying to be a professional actress in Los Angeles, a comedian. I was in SAG and AFTRA, and I would get very small, one line here or there, as many people did. And my agent actually got me an interview with, his name was Bob Dolce, the booker of The Tonight Show. And it wasn't true stand up. It was, you would maybe call it, at that time, this was way before they had, what was that show? America's Got Talent or any of these shows. It was a variety act. I basically
That's
did.
incredible.
Yeah, I did a variety act. It was a comedy act, and it's. It's whether you think it's funny or not. It wasn't easy to do because basically I'm playing two flutes through my nose, standing on my head. Not easy to do that at the same time. And I was also blowing bubbles with bubble gum through my mouth while playing two flutes through my nose. So it's not like everyone can do this. Every part of the act, many people can learn to stand on their head. Many people can learn to play the flute with their nose, and many people can learn to blow bubble gum with their mouth. But to do them all at the same time, it did take some skill. It took a lot of practice.
When I see an act like that, the first thought that comes to my head, and I think lots of people's heads, how did you even figure out you could put all those things together and do it?
Yeah,
How do you figure that out? Like, I'm going to stand on my head, blow a bubble, and play two flutes. Like, how did you figure that out? Like, why not juggle chainsaws upside down?
Yeah, believe me, one day that's on my bucket list to learn to juggle. I'm having trouble even just with small round balls right now. Putting it together was just, I'm trying. Part of the thing is I often always had bubble gum in my mouth. I just was a compulsive gum chewer back in the day. And so that is actually the reason I started playing the flute with my nose, is because I had the gum in my mouth. And as I said to Johnny Carson, literally, once the flute is stuck up your nose, it's not actually a flute like a woodwind instrument. It's called a tonette or a recorder. I can do both. Once the flute's stuck up your nose, you don't want to put it in your mouth. So I had always played it with my nose since the age of 7, when this instrument was taught to us at the private school I was going to. And so I'm trying to think of when I guess just having gum in my mouth. I said, well, I wonder if I could blow a bubble, because it takes a different kind of airflow to direct it out of both nostrils and your mouth. So I just was, kind of bored moments, challenging myself. And then when I got to be in my late 20s, I started taking yoga, and I learned to stand on my head. And I thought, well, God, wouldn't it be cool if I could do this standing on my head? And so, it's just kind of like, I wasn't thinking at the age of 7, like, oh, one day this will get me on the Tonight Show. Although I did think from the age of 7 that I wanted to be on the Tonight Show. So I do believe that, what you think about long enough, if you can manifest it, because that was just a dream to always be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. I didn't know how I was going to get there or when, but it was something that I always wanted really badly.
Wow, that's so interesting. So not only did you incorporate chewing bubblegum and blowing flutes out of your nose, but also your yoga practice. You were like a modern day Renaissance woman at the time. So the big question about the bubble gum, were you bubble yum or bubblicious back in the day?
Oh, I wish, I kept that for a long time. I know that it was pink. I'm trying. I think it was bubble yum, to be honest.
Okay. So now, in the spirit, we have learned that you did a set on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, which is incredible. Now, after you had mentioned when you did the fundraiser on Indiegogo for me, and afterwards you had some top comedians do a thank you show for everyone that donated, and it was incredible. And one of those comedians actually does a stand-up comedy workshop, which you were kind enough to gift to me, so I got to do this 6-week stand-up comedy experience along with you and your husband Charles, and it was a blast. And we got to do a 5-minute set, at the end on Zoom, but I was always so impressed with your ability to just do these improv. I don't want to say rants, but kind of rants. At the time you were moving, you're
Yeah.
experiencing new and different people. Like, I don't want to put you on the spot with like do some stand up, but
No, I know
just off the,
it's so
just
funny.
off the top of your head, like with what's going on in your life right now, like, hey, yesterday I had emergency. I broke a tooth and had to get a tooth pulled. It was awful. And Charles told me you were just getting
Yeah.
emergency dental service. So it doesn't have to be about that, but give us like 60
Yeah.
seconds of a
You
classic
know,
Chef
I
AJ comedic rant.
Oh my gosh, it's really that's a lot of pressure, Pete, because it's sort of like, if you're a surgeon, people don't say, "Oh, operate." It's like, but when you're a comedian, well, be funny. It's kind of hard to be funny when people are expecting you to be funny. But usually when I do rant and it's successful, it's just telling the truth of what's going on right now. And all I can tell you is I'm 62 and a half. I'm closer to dead than alive, and getting old sucks because my body, even though I have taken care of it to the best of my ability as a 45-year vegan, these are factory parts, and your parts don't last forever, and teeth are an example. So uh, I probably get it's I'm probably going to have a root canal, and there's nothing that scares me more than having strange men in my mouth. I mean, because I just moved, so I don't know this guy, and it's very invasive when you have people in your mouth. If you ask me, it's like my this is like my orifices are for me; they're not for strangers to charge me money to put their fingers in. That's the thing. I have to pay. You know how much a root canal is? Oh my God, they're like $2,000. And it just kills me that our parts don't last, that we have to, at some point, think about replacing them or having them fixed. And that's the one bad part about being a healthy vegan is I'm probably going to outlive some of my parts.
There you go. 60
Yeah.
seconds of hilarity. I love it. You are so good at it.
I was just telling the truth. And don't get me started on moving. That's another stressful thing. Oh my
I
God.
know, right, right.
That
And
really,
I should mention, going back to the gum, that Deanna brought up another popular flavor that was pink from back in the day, Hubba
Bazooka.
Bubba
Oh,
and
Hubba
Hubba
Bubba.
Bubba.
You know what? Mine might have been Hubba Bubba, and I used to love Bazooka. Bazooka Joe. I love the comic books.
Yeah.
I haven't, I have TMJ now, so I haven't chewed gum in, probably since I was 27. But I did love it back in the day.
There was also a gum when I was a kid called Bub's Daddy that kind of looked like a Slim Jim. It was like a long stick of gum called
I
Bub's
don't
Daddy
remember that
that I
one.
always thought was fun. So, okay, so really quick, I can't believe that 49 minutes have already gone by in the show. We are still going to get to the core question of the show because I like to go just a little bit deep. But really quick, since you mentioned that you are 62 and a half years old, before the show, I asked you about when you graduated high school, and you were June of 1977. So, what is this?
Whistles of Wondering.
Ah, the Whistles of Wondering segment. So, Chef AJ, it makes me wonder because I love talking about pop culture as well. What were the top movies and music and TV shows when you graduated college? The
I'm
top
supposed
five
to.
songs from June 11th, 1977. Number five, Feels Like the First Time by Foreigner. Number four, Gonna Fly Now, the theme from Rocky by
Love
Bill
that.
Conti. Number three, Got to Give It Up by Marvin Gaye. Number two, Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. And the number one song the year you graduated in June of 1977, I'm Your Boogeyman by Casey and the Sunshine Band. And in case you were wondering, as Whistles of Wondering is ought to do, the top five TV shows were Laugh-In, Soap, Three's Company, Happy Days, and Charlie's Angels was number one.
Oh, I
By
love
far, it was number one by far.
that. Was a
Men and
great
women
show.
alike loved watching that show. And finally, the top three movies in June of 1977. were Star Wars, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, and The Deep.
And
Pretty
I didn't
interesting.
see, I didn't see any of those. That's
Wow.
hilarious. They're all too scary. I don't like scary movies.
I used to like scary
Wow.
movies, but not anymore, especially the modern day ones that are so
They're
graphic
so,
and
yeah.
just can't take it. So, Chef AJ, this is a core question of the show, and here we are coming to the end of the show, but it'll be a good time to go a little deep. What would you say was one of your biggest obstacles in life, and how did you overcome it?
Do you want personal, professional, or both?
I'll take both.
Okay. Well, I'll talk since I will do the professional one first. So when I started out as a vegan chef and author, and I'd been vegan for a long time, but when I really wanted to get jobs and like paid jobs or even not paid jobs, but I wanted people to hire me, to teach cooking classes and to do presentations like I'm doing now. I couldn't get arrested. And so I could have just said, okay, well, I guess it's not meant to be, and this is not what I'm going to do. But whenever somebody wouldn't give me a job, I created one. And so what I did is I couldn't get a job speaking at any of the vegan conferences, so I produced my own conference and I gave myself a job. And then I
Wow.
ended up successfully producing 19 conferences, and 18 of them I didn't get to speak at because I was so busy producing the conference. But the point is, it's the same thing. I always wanted a TV show. Nobody would give me one. So I got one myself, by funding it, on Foodie TV, and it was a real TV show. And it's the same thing like with YouTube. Nobody gave me the YouTube show. It's so that's one kind of a recurring theme in my life. When people say no, I just do it anyway. I
When
don't I
people
don't let
say no, Chef AJ says go.
Exactly. So I mean, those could be obstacles because I know they are for a lot of people. It's like, well, I really tried and I couldn't. Well, no, you couldn't get it from that avenue, but you didn't try this avenue. So if you want something bad enough, you can get it. You just may not be able to get it though, just like you wanted a van, right? You really did want a van. And
Yes.
maybe you didn't get it the way that a lot of people get it by going to the dealership and paying for it. And maybe at first you didn't get it by the GoFundMe, but I believe, I have to believe that you are never given a desire without the ability to make that desire come true. And so
Wow.
I think,
I believe that too. That's really deep.
yeah,
Yeah,
so,
I totally believe that too. It's kind of in
yeah,
the spirit of whenever you have a task in front of you, you're speaking kind of like over encompassing life goals. But even if you have a simple task in front of you that you're like, I can't do it, or there's no way to do this, like, no, there's a way to do everything. You just have to figure it out.
and one of the people I've interviewed on my show, her name is Joan Darling. You might like to interview her because I think she's one of the most fascinating women in the world because she was the first, I believe, first woman director in television to win an Emmy. And she won an Emmy for a very famous episode of the Mary Tyler Moore Show called Chuckles Bites the Dust. And she's in her 80s now, and she's brilliant. Her name is Joan Darling. And when I used to take her acting class in the 80s when I lived in Los Angeles, and people would come to the class and they could be like, we had Ann Archer in the class, who at the time was nominated for an Academy Award for Fatal Attraction. We had a person in the class that was an anesthesiologist that was thinking of changing careers. He had never acted. We had a 7-year-old girl in the class, and all kinds of people from all walks of life. And they would do their scene and act in front of Joan. And she would critique them. And a lot of times they would say, Joan, have I got it? Have I got it? And she goes, have you got what? Have I got what it takes to succeed in Hollywood, to succeed in show business? And every single person, regardless of their ability, she would say the same thing. I don't know. How bad do you want it?
Interesting. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So now, how
So,
about a personal obstacle?
well, I think the personal obstacle, and I write about this in my book on process, when I was 40 years old, I had a series of very painful miscarriages. And one of them was, I wouldn't even call it a miscarriage because the baby was, depending on what law you look at, born. But it was very difficult. And I had this year, I had a period of a couple of years where my mother, my father, my dog, and I lost 4 children. I feel they were children because to me, once you get pregnant, you love that thing inside of you, even if it's never born. And so I basically short circuited and developed what's called panic disorder and agoraphobia. And I didn't leave my house for a whole year. And I could not function in society. And getting over that and then losing my house, because when you can't work, you can't pay for your house, and they don't take that medical stuff. They don't care. But getting back on my feet after that was really, really difficult. I ended up getting a service dog. I don't know if you remember Sparky, that helped me get back into society. I ended up getting on the show The Dog Whisperer, getting help from Cesar Millan. So that was really, really hard. It wasn't even so much getting over the loss of all the loved ones and the babies, but panic disorder, anxiety in general is not fun, but panic disorder, panic attacks are just disabling. And so I still have a little bit left of that in me on certain occasions. I'm functioning now, but it's funny when you go to places like the dentist, it comes back. But I think just finding ways to, I don't like the word get over, because I don't think you ever get over anything. You don't get over the loss of your child. You don't get over, but you manage it. You manage it. And so I'm kind of proud of that, because I know people with my condition that never got out of the house. I've talked to them. I know how hard it is. So yeah, so that I'm proud of that, because that was hard. It was really hard.
Yeah, that's a huge obstacle to get over. Kind of one
Yeah.
final question that I'm really curious about in regards to like everything you're doing. Like, obviously, you are in very aligned with nature, with the universe. Like, where does your spirituality lie within everything you do?
Well, I mean, I'm not religious. Like, I was born Jewish and raised Orthodox. I mean, I don't go to any church or temple. Not that I'm opposed to that. It's just it's always during my show. you know. Um, I mean, I believe in, what do you want to call it, God, or a power that's greater than me, or goodness. I mean, to me, that's really important, because if there's nobody in charge, then we may as well give up now. I don't understand why some things happen, in the world. And I'm not just talking about current events, but why people are cruel to each other and to animals. But I just gotta put my faith that there is going to be some explanation at some point. And I mean, I do believe in God, and I pray to God all the time, and I think, I think, just being grateful is one thing I really try to, like, even when I'm in pain, like now with this tooth, I mean, I try to really be grateful for all the things that are good, and so that's, I guess, where my spirituality is. It's
Yeah,
not like a
that's
formal
beautiful.
kind of thing. It's not, and I really think that I need to start doing more in that, because everything with me is so much science based with nutrition. I think that stuff is just as important, and I need to get back to, like, in my 20s. I don't meditate anymore and those kind of things. So I mean, but I do things that are meditative, like yoga. But I do think that, it's funny, there's an old joke. What do you call an atheist in a coffin, somebody that's all dressed up with no place to go? I know all these people that don't believe in God, but then when really bad things happen, the first thing they're doing is praying. You know what I mean? It's so
Yeah,
funny,
totally. And I just want to share with you, Chef AJ, that Deanna in our audience, she said, just like any desire in front of you is doable, any obstacle is manageable. You are magic and you have in you what you need to manage and heal. And she thanks you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Graciela in the audience said, broadcasted to the world. So, Chef AJ, I can't believe how fast an hour went by. There was about 72 other things I wanted to ask you and talk about, but the time flew right by, so we might have to revisit a conversation a few months down the road. But I really, really, really sincerely thank you for coming on my show. Thank you for sharing your stories, especially your more personal ones here at the end. Thank you for helping to make my brand new van a reality. And yes, just thank you for being here on All Walks of Life. Let's Inspire.
Thank you, Pete, and good luck with the show.
Thanks. And I just want to remind people, if you want to reach Chef AJ, it's in the fortune cookie. I will fix the fortune cookie for the replay, but you could reach her on Instagram at the real Chef AJ. You could find her on her website, www.chefaj.com. and her incredible YouTube channel where she has a podcast and interview at least once a day, if not more than once a day, at www.youtube.com/C/Chef AJ. So do reach out to her, follow her, and it will be a great symbiotic relationship, I promise you. And as we wrap up here on All Walks of Life, Let's Inspire, I want to thank my audience here live on Fireside for being here. I'd like to thank everyone watching the simulcast on YouTube, or if you're watching the replay here on Fireside or YouTube, or maybe Facebook. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you felt some inspiration. And I also want to let you know that I've got some great guests coming up. This Saturday, October 15th, is actress Michelle Kuziak, who just made her directorial debut with Neon, a short film that's part of Hulu's bite-sized Halloween. And the following Saturday, October 22nd, is Jennifer Jane. She's the co-founder and chief marketing officer of Proper Good Meals. We had her brother, Christopher Jane, on a few weeks ago. It's going to be great to talk to Jennifer. Then on Saturday, October 29th, is Kevin Bergeron. He's the co-founder of Waxworks Records, which specializes in taking classic horror movie soundtracks and pressing them on vinyl with an all-new picture, sleeve, and cover. So make sure you tune in, mostly on Saturdays, here on Fireside, 3 p.m. PST, to All Walks of Life.